Sorry, everyone, if you're watching, I'm just trying to figure out. I've never live streamed before. I'm trying to use like Restream to connect to multiple services so you can watch on like Twitch or YouTube or FacePage. I'm gonna try to do the Facebook one again because I think I ended the stream accidentally early. And then we'll start with Elixir. All right, I'm just going to assume that YouTube and Twitch are working because I can hear my own audio. So let me just get the live video key, and my computer is already at a crawl, which is not nice. So let's just get out of iTunes and try to free up some memory. Awesome. Facebook isn't being nice. All right, let's try that one more time. You can see me on Facebook or only on Twitch?
Twitch.
Okay, cool. I'm going to try the Facebook post one more time. Supplies for learning how to program. Come on, load Facebook. Oh, why is it so slow? Where are you reporting? All right, so plenty of CPU. All right, let's try this in a new tab real quick. All right, I'm giving up on that other tab. We will figure out how to post this to Facebook. Just a minute. And then I'll tell you about where I'm at with Elixir and what we're going to be doing. I'm going to let the whole page fully render, which might take a second because Facebook is like a massive package. Draw. All right, looks like it's loading better. Okay, so that looks fully loaded. And now let's try clicking on the live video link. And hopefully it'll work this time. Well, this is fun. I wonder what kind of computer you need in order to do this without like all this lag. It's like I've got a pretty good MacBook Pro, but don't know. And I like quit every other program I could think of. Come on, load. Otherwise, what I'm going to do is actually stop the broadcast and then restart it to try to get this page to load so I can get, oh, perfect, connects. Don't want my camera. It's working. It's just going super slow. We're so close to starting. Cool. Let's grab this key. Copy it, go to Restream, enter it here, paste it, save. Cool, that's going to connect. This should now turn into online. Let's just put a title, Live Learning Elixir. Fetching the stream. Okay, go live. Does that work? Okay. I'm going to assume I'm live. I'm hearing my echo, so I hope it's not from this page because I don't want to close this tab. It feels like this tab needs to be open. All right, I wonder how I can close this tab. Can I? Or is that going to shut off the stream? Let's see. I don't know. I mean, I'm worried if I like close this tab, it's gonna, but I also don't want to hear myself. It's really annoying. I'm gonna leave this and then be back in 1 second to see if this Facebook one worked. I should just hit stay and see what happens. Can I like close the sound on this tab? All right. Let's just try closing this tab and see what happens. I wonder if we're still live. Okay, I'm just going to assume we're still live and we'll figure it out on Facebook. If anyone from Flatiron is on the Facebook group and I'm not currently streaming on that, please let me know. I'm on the Facebook group. It's streaming, Tyler? All right, I'm going to close this tab too because it looks like everything is good. So let's do this. All right, hi everyone. Happy Friday. I'm Avi, I'm one of the founders of Flatiron School, and as part of our September Back to Code challenge, I signed up to teach myself Elixir in front of all of you, which is actually pretty scary, because, I don't know, learning something in front of people, I guess, still intimidates me. So my plan is to learn a programming language called Elixir, and let's just talk about Elixir real quick. Elixir is a new language built on top of the Erlang VM. Erlang is a language that was invented by, I can't remember, like a phone company in like the 80s or something to handle like switching. And then Jose Valim, who was Platforma tech and a Ruby contributor and a Rails contributor, built a functional dynamic language on top of the Erlang VM, and it's super fast and it's really cool. And there's a web framework called Phoenix that's kind of similar to Rails for doing web development in Elixir. So all the programmers I know at Flatiron School and a lot of the programmers I know around the world, we've all been pretty excited about Elixir, and I decided to teach myself it in front of all of you. So let me tell you a little bit about what I've done so far with both Elixir and kind of setting up for this teaching myself Elixir in front of all of you. So first, I have a repo, Avi Flombaum. It's on github.com/learningelixir, and I'll basically post all of the code as I'm learning it. This is kind of the schedule of when the streams are going to happen, and I guess let's start with where I'm at in terms of Elixir. So a few months ago, I read this book by, I believe it's Dave Thomas, who is also one of the Ruby people, Programming Elixir. I've read this book probably like 2 or 3 times. And I've not written a line of code in Elixir. And that might seem like a kind of a weird workflow, which is why would I read a programming book like 2 or 3 times and not write a line of code? In fact, how do I even equate that with learning? And the way I kind of think of it is that when I sit down to work on a new framework or on a new language, Before I start getting into like the nitty-gritty details of like, how does this language treat arguments or methods or scope and things like that, what I'm looking for is kind of like a 10,000-foot overview of the entire language. So by reading Programming Elixir 2 or 3 times, I have a general sense of what's in the language. So I know things about like how it defines functions generally. I know things about its argumentarity and how the language wants to treat arguments and things like that. So that by reading the book 2 or 3 times before I even try to write a line of code in Elixir, I know no Elixir, but I have an understanding of generally what Elixir is capable of. So that's one thing I did, was just start reading this book on the subway like months ago. And I think I've read it like 2 or 3 times at this point. I have also read the Elixir guide. The Elixir Lane website has an awesome guide that we're probably actually going to use a ton. So I basically read this whole getting started thing like 2 or 3 times also. Again, just to understand the general scope of the language and its general kind of tendencies, get some ideas of what I'm going to need to do. And then I've also read the Intro to Phoenix guide like 1 or 2 times, and I've never written a line of Elixir or a line of Phoenix. I've also read some project source code. I found some Elixir projects and Phoenix projects on GitHub, and I'd open them up, and I'd kind of read that code to get a sense of the style. And then just in general, I've been programming for like 20 years. So I have some experience kind of, understanding what programming languages do in general that I hope will make this process a little easier. So that's where I'm at. In terms of other things, I have a directory at Learning Elixir. I am on a MacBook Pro with Sierra, pretty updated, and I have the Brew package manager. And earlier today, I just upgraded my installation of Elixir and Erlang to make sure that I'm using the most common version or the newest version of Elixir, which I can check right over here with Elixir version. And it's going to tell me I'm on 1.5.1, which is the most up-to-date one. I did try to play with an Elixir version manager so that I could switch between versions, but it was giving me some problems. And the truth is, in the beginning of a language, I don't mind being locked down to one version of that language. I'm super happy being on Elixir 1.5.1. So that's kind of all the setup I've done, which is I've read a little bit about the language, both the guides and the programming book 2 or 3 times. I have not written a line of code. I've not played with it at all. I've gotten my environment set up, and that's kind of the base of kind of how I prepared for this. And then also I have 1, 2 Red Bulls and a Chewy bar, so when I get hungry. And I'll probably take a break every like 45 minutes or 50 minutes because my brain will explode if I just keep on trying to learn. Okay, I'm going to use Sublime because I think it's a little lighter. It's a lighter weight text editor than like Atom or anything else, and I want to kind of conserve as much CPU and memory for the stream. My goal for today is to try to build a procedural tic-tac-toe version, a procedural version of tic-tac-toe in Elixir in the command line. And just to show you what I mean by that, at Flatiron School, we have a platform called Learn.co, and the way I teach Ruby in the intro to Ruby is by kind of walking students through building tic-tac-toe in discrete components, so that by the end of the project, this is kind of what the game looks like, and you can see it's like validating moves, and it'll know if someone has won. So let's try to make X win real quick. Cool, and then what is that, 7? Right, so X wins, and that's kind of some simple logic. I think tic-tac-toe is a nice progression to learning a programming language because you can really, it's a simple domain. Everyone I've met knows the rules of tic-tac-toe. The logic is generally pretty simple, but it pushes you to use things like arrays and iteration and logic and conditionals and data. So I think that's a pretty good intro domain to a programming language. I think a command line interface is always the simplest interface, so rather than getting started with Phoenix, which is going to be a web interface and it's going to be complicated with like HTTP and APIs and databases and HTML and CSS, I think that a command line interface like this is actually pretty simple, and that I'm just dealing with really, really simple string input and not worrying about like the web. So that's kind of my goal. Yeah, let's just get started and see how far we get. So this is my day 1. And I guess, when I think about tic-tac-toe, the first thing I want to do is kind of print out welcome to tic-tac-toe, right? Like I want to build a program that's going to basically be what that Ruby program was, and it should welcome the user. I'd like to know how to print out a board. I want to know how to store pieces in a board. I want to print out a board based on data, right? And I think that's actually a pretty good like first step, right? So that kind of what I imagine the first version of my program doing is saying like, you know, welcome to tic-tac-toe, and then, you know, kind of printing out a tic-tac-toe board that looks like this. It'll be empty because no one has gone there yet, like no move has been made. Cool, something like that. And then, excuse me. Right, so it'd be nice to see a board kind of like that. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, whatever. I'll figure out the spacing later. And then after, I would also like to be able to then see like a board with like, I don't know, an X in the center, right? And the X in the center should not be hard-coded. It should be based on actual, you know, data being in some sort of board, probably array, I imagine, right? So that's kind of like the first iteration of where I want to go. And yeah, I don't know, with that, let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is figure out how to run an Elixir file. I remember when I was reading those books and these guides, there is like an Elixir project builder, I believe, called Mix, right? You can see kind of over here, it mentions Mix. In this guide, to learn how to build a complete Elixir application with its own supervision tree, configuration, whatever. And the truth is that this is already too much for me, in the sense that my first version of tic-tac-toe, I don't even know what the OTP platform is, right? XUnit, I'm not going to be writing tests right now, right? But I could kind of see this that, you know, it seems to have some sort of structure like, you know, a config, a lib, which I'm pretty used to. So yeah, I don't know. I'm going to kind of start there. And again, I'm not going to use Mix, but I'm going to kind of try to mimic this little file structure that it creates. So let's just make a directory called tic-tac-toe. I don't know, let's call it day 1. And that's going to be like my first kind of like scratch file. I'm going to make a directory in here called lib. I'm going to make a directory in here called bin. And the truth is, right now, I'm really going to be programming in my bin file, in the sense that the first thing I really want in here is I just want to write a program already. So I'm just going to make tic-tac-toe, tic-tac-toe dot, let's see, what is the file extension for an Elixir program? I'm going to hope it's EX. It looks like that's what the file extension is for an Elixir program. And again, I'm going to iterate on this a lot, but this seems like a good place to start, which is a file. And I'm going to save it. And now I'm going to figure out, it does nothing. Can I run it, right? So can I type in Elixir bin tic-tac-toe and run a program? Okay, awesome. Program ran, right? I told my Elixir interpreter to run this program, and I did not get an error. It did nothing, right? Let me just make sure that this is actually working, which is if I type in gibberish, which I know is not probably valid Elixir code, I want to see an error there. Beautiful. And I get an undefined variable compilation error, which is perfect because that was gibberish. So I know that my Elixir interpreter is correctly interpreting this file, and now I want to know how to print out something. I like vaguely remember in a book something like kernel.puts maybe. Hello? I don't know. If not, I'm about to Google something, but that's fine too. So that's not a thing. Maybe kernel.print. And if that doesn't work, okay. One more. I remember something like an IO module, maybe, for input-output. Nope. Okay, let's just try io.puts, and then I'm just going to Google. Right, and I guess like that's kind of like what I like to do is I like to like play. Oh, look at that. I guessed it right. io.puts. Had that not worked, what I probably would have done was something like this. How to print things, or I don't know, how to print a string to terminal Elixir. Right, and I'm going to probably be phrasing a lot of questions to Google that way, right? IO in the file stream, printing to console with Elixir, right? And that's kind of what I was going to do if I could not just get io.puts, right? And this looks actually like a pretty nice, useful article. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, so there is my simple hello world program, right, in Elixir. So now I know how to print things, which is great because, you know, telling people stuff is really important in a programming language. And now I actually want to start printing this board. So let's just try something like this. What I basically want to do is put an io.puts in front of all of these lines. Make that a string. Cool. So the spacing here is important because I want it to be right. So 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Okay. So that should be my blank board. And now I'm going to say, welcome to tic-tac-toe. I'm pretty excited, 3 exclamation marks, and great, awesome. So I was able to print a blank board, and I guess the next step is, I guess my next step is that I would like to build a function or a method of some sort. That way, every time I want to print a board, I don't need to repeat these lines of code, right? Like programming is all about, you know, being lazy and kind of building units of work. If I wanted to print the board again, I'd basically have to duplicate all those lines of code, and that's bananas. So what I want to know next is how do I wrap this procedure in a function or a method in Elixir and then invoke that function once. So let's just go back to this Elixir guide, and I don't know, let's just see if we can find like some sort of like function, you know, kind of thing. Oh, modules and functions. There we go. Okay, so here's how they're defining a module called math, which seems to me to be some sort of like kind of like a class or a singleton in Ruby. I don't want that. I don't want to get into objects yet. I really just want to build like procedural kind of functions right now, right? So I'm still looking at all this, and when executed, well, this is interesting. In addition to Elixir files and EX, this supports EX for scripting. Oh, this is interesting. So the file extension actually makes a difference, right? Because by using the .ex extension in my file, I'm basically compiling down to bytecode before it executes. Because I'm going to be programming pretty iteratively, I think it actually makes more sense to use an exs extension because I kind of want it to be like a scripting-based, you know, like thing. Right, and compiled in memory and executed printing 3. No bytecode file will be created, right? So that's better. In the following examples, we recommend you write your code in the script files and execute them. All right, so let's just change the file extension on this guy to exs and tell Elixir that it's now a scripting-based program. And let's just make sure it still works. And it does. Beautiful. Okay, so inside a module, we can define functions with def2. So we have this def keyword. And we can do private functions with def-p. So from what I remember about reading in Elixir, I can basically skip creating a module because I'm not exactly sure what modules are in Elixir right now. And I think I can just do def like this sort of directly in my program. So let's do something like def display. And I think Elixir's naming convention is pretty similar to Ruby in that it likes, you know, display board, something like that. I also, by the way, did install in my Sublime the Elixir syntax highlighting language. Okay, so now we have a function, hopefully, called display board. And let's just make sure this works. Okay, cool. So it did not work, and I have an unexpected token end, which is scary. I'm guessing that Elixir wants me to always use parentheses, even if the function doesn't take arguments. Maybe you have to just put the parentheses there. I am just guessing. Nope, that's not it. Okay, so let's go back a little bit and figure out a little bit more about functions and why that did not work. Okay, so these are modules and functions. Can I build functions without modules? I don't know. If not, I can kind of wrap that in there. I don't mind wrapping it in a module, but I just kind of want to see if I can build functions without a module. Define function in Elixir outside a module. All right, something like that. Otherwise I'll wrap it in a module. Yeah, working with functions and modules. Imperative. Ooh, interesting. Okay, whatever. Let's just see what happens. And I mean, I hope, I can't imagine this being interesting to anyone watching, but, I was told it would be cool. But this is kind of how I learn. Like, I know that in Ruby, I can, both be procedural and object-oriented, and I don't know if I can do that with Elixir. It sounds like you can't. Long answer, all code in Elixir decide modules since many Elixir functions like hot code swapping, module container. That's why you can't define functions outside of modules. There is no global mutable namespace they can be added to. Interesting. So based on this answer, it seems like I cannot treat like Elixir in kind of a more scripting way, which is what I wanted to be able to just like in Ruby, just define functions outside of it. But before I do that, I'm just going to look a little bit more. Because again, as I'm learning, all of this kind of stuff, puts things in my head, I guess. This is not so interesting. Okay, and let's just go to one more article and see what happens in here, working with defining functions. Okay, so let's define. So there is a function over here, and that looks to be outside of it. One thing I've noticed is that there's this do thing over there, right? So that sounds interesting. So let me see if I just say def board and just put a do there. Do I still get that syntax error? Okay, cool. Can invoke def to outside of a module. So again, a similar kind of error, which is upsetting. I just want to try one more time because trying is free. And that didn't do anything either. Okay, so at this point I am ready to give up on trying to define a function outside of a module in Elixir, and I will now actually just define some sort of module. And I will copy this code and say something like def module, let's call it tic-tac-toe. Let's indent this stuff. I don't know, let's see if I get a syntax error now. Okay, cool. So I have gotten past this whole function outside of a module crap. So now I have a module called tic-tac-toe, and I have a function inside of there called display board. And you can see when I ran my program, nothing happens. And that's because while I defined this function inside of this module, I never invoked it. So maybe I want to do something like, I don't know, tic-tac-toe dot display board, like that. And now let's see if that works. Okay, perfect. So that's good. So basically, this module I just defined, which is sort of just in my mind right now, like a namespace. It kind of reminds me of like a singleton in other languages. I have a module called tic-tac-toe. Inside of that module, there's a function called display board. Okay, I like that. Let's make another function called, I don't know, call, which is basically going to be like my game routine. So that we say display board. In fact, let's actually move this code in here too. And this is how I basically start my game, I guess. And now this line of code should never change. And as I start building more functionality into my game, I'm just going to basically put it in the call method, which is kind of like stealing a little patterns from Ruby. And to the extent in which Ruby and Elixir share similar patterns, that kind of works for me. Okay. So right now, the way that this file is being interpreted is that the module is being defined, these two functions are being defined, it's being invoked on line 16, which is triggering the hello and the display board, and that's good news so far. Okay, so at this point in my to-do, I am at this point over here. And now I need to know is how to store pieces in a board. Okay, so what I need to do is figure out a data type or data structure to store a board of tic-tac-toe. And I know that in Elixir, again, because I read this book once or twice, there are like arrays or like lists and stuff like that. And I guess that's what I'm looking for, is basically like the basics type section. And I kind of want to get a sense of like how lists or things like that work. So I don't know, I'm seeing like lists, tuples, lists are tuples, which is already a little scary because I don't actually know what a tuple is. I'm excited to learn about it. Okay, so cool, atoms. Atoms are like symbols, strings are strings. Anonymous functions, apparently we could do some cool anonymous function stuff. We'll see, okay. Okay, here we go. Linked list. Elixir uses square brackets to specify a list of values. Values can be of any type. Two lists may be concatenated and abstracted. So cool. And then, okay, so it seems like lists feel like arrays to me in Ruby, which is something I'm going to need. To define tuples, like tuples can hold any value. Tuples store elements contiguously in memory. This means accessing tuple element by index or getting tuple sizes fast operations. Indexes start from 0. So interesting in that like tuples seem to be sort of like lists. However, they're contiguous in memory and they're accessing a tuple element by index or getting a tuple size is a fast operation. So right now I'm leaning towards tuple for my board in the sense that I'm going to want to refer to the position in a board a lot. So I'm going to be using indexes a lot for it. But let's see what the difference here is. Lists are stored in memory as linked lists, meaning each element in the list holds its value and points to the following element until the end of the list is reached. And as a linked list is a linear operation when you traverse the whole list. Okay, so I'm never going to need to know the size of my board, so it's always 9. Okay, I'm never going to have to perform these kinds of operations of like concatenating onto a board, I don't believe, right? Tuple size is fast, however, updating or adding elements to a tuple is expensive because it requires a new tuple in memory. I'm definitely going to need to be updating elements a lot. And by the way, there's a good chance that using a list or a tuple in the scope of tic-tac-toe is not going to matter at all. But again, I'm trying to learn the language, so I'm trying to get a sense of like what these things are. Okay, so... okay, so at this point, what I want to do is sort of play with these things for a second. So, in Ruby, we have something called IRB that lets me execute like random Ruby, right? And in Elixir, I believe we have IEX, which is the Elixir interpreter. So here I should be able to execute, random Elixir, right? And now I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, I don't know, let's make a board T. Let's actually make a board L, which is going to be my list. And for now, I'm just going to make it like 3 spaces, something like that. Oops, okay. Okay, well, that's not what I wanted. I had a typo in there, and it gave me that weird break thing, which was not super fun. I'm definitely going to have to figure out a little more of how IEX works. Okay, so there's a board. And if I say board L0, I assume I'm asking for the first elements. The access call for keywords expect the key to be an atom. Interesting. I was not expecting that. Okay, so let's see how we update elements in an array. Okay, I guess that's my first question, is how to access elements in a list Elixir, right? Because I thought it was going to kind of be like a Ruby syntax where like you just pass it the index, but that blew up. So here we go, accessing a signal element of a list by index. Now let's see what this does. In Ruby, I would use square brackets. But Elixir, it's not object-oriented, instead provides an enum module that has many functions that can operate on a list. The functions return an element by index. Okay. So, this is interesting. Okay, so if I say enum at and I pass in a list, and then the index is a second argument to the enum at call, I should be able to get it there. So let's say enum at, and now I pass in board L, which is my list, and then 0, and now I should get back empty string. Awesome. That's great news. Now what I want to do is just confirm that, because for all I know that returned like the 10th element, and let's put an X in there, and now try that again. I should get back an X. Okay, great. So enum.at, given a list and an index, will give me back an element from that. That's good news. That's basically good enough. It seems like there's a difference between at and fetch. Fetch will return to me an atom error if it can't find it. At will return nil. Again, this is a pretty simple thing in the sense that my board is really always going to be 9 elements, and at seems to be good enough. Okay, so that's good in terms of accessing elements in the array. And now let's just play with tuples and see what that does, right? So now if I say board T and we create a tuple, so there's 1, 2, 3 elements in that tuple, right? And now, I don't know, can I do board T0? No. Interesting. The following arguments were given to access.gets. I have no idea what that error message means yet. I'm not familiar with how to read this stuff, but I'm going to do what I did before, which is how to get an element out of a tuple by index elixir. And hopefully it's in similar enum type functionality. Okay, let's see. Using tuples. Extraction of elements in tuples. Extracting a specific element from a tuple. Ooh, but that's Erlang. That sounds very scary. Let's not do that. Okay, so we're back at this dude's blog, Cult TT. Thank you for writing its blog post. Okay, what is a tuple? I mentioned this tuple is a list type that can hold any value. Tuple is used for storing related data together to form a single aggregate value, for example, of a person tuple. So tuple seems to be like, I don't know if this is right, but store containing memory and are getting a piece of data from tuples faster. But if you hold a person, however, modifying tuples so it will create. Okay. Okay, I think I want to use a list. Based on what I'm reading here with tuples, it really seems like a board is really, in my mind, not representative of an aggregate value, of a single value, as like a person. It's really 9 discrete values. But because I'm already here, I do want to figure out, just for funsies, how to read stuff out of a tuple. So let's see, lm function. Where did he mention that before? Okay, so there seems to be like an lm. So what if I say lm, and then we say board t0? Does that give me back? Okay, cool. So this is kind of like the enum.at function. Related to a tuple as opposed to a list. So let's just go back in here and put an X in the middle one for a second and see if I can get that like that. Okay, cool. All right, so we learned a little bit about lists and a little bit about tuples, and I've decided I'm going to want to use a list for this and not a tuple. And I might be wrong, I might be right, but I definitely want to move on at this point. So I understand now. Let's just hard code this for a second. So if I said board equals something like this, and I wish I knew how to make an array with 9 new spaces like array.new in Ruby. In fact, let me just list.new 9. Nope, that's not a thing. And this is not a thing either, is it? Great, that's not a thing either. Interestingly enough, list.new told me that it's either undefined or private. However, array.new told me that the module array is not available. So there seems to be some sort of list type module built into Elixir. And now I'm just curious, list constructor Elixir, which is, in programming, we tend to call this a literal constructor in the sense that I'm literally constructing an array right now, or a list. I have to stop calling them arrays. What I'm curious of, is there a way for me to basically do that automatically via like a kind of list constructor. So let's do list constructor Elixir, and let's see if there's a way to say like, hey Elixir, give me a new list with 9 elements who start out at an empty string. So here is the list function, and let's see what happens over here. The list module. This is good. So hex docs, I remember reading about that. This is basically like the API documentation for the Elixir language, sort of like Ruby docs, right? And here we're seeing all of this stuff. And so far, we're, you know, okay. So I'm seeing a lot of like functions on the list thing, which is nice, but what I'm not seeing is any kind of constructor, which is, and again, like, that kind of makes sense to me because, Elixir is not really object oriented. So the idea of instantiating a new list, that doesn't feel right, but I was pretty excited for it. Where is the summary here? All right, so this is flatten, fold, folder. Okay. All right, so I'm getting a sense of what are all the list functions that I get as part of the list module. And now I guess the next thing I want to try to do is just maybe be a little more direct and say how to create a list with default values Elixir, right? Like, because that's really what I wanted to be able to say, is to not have to explicitly say there are 9 elements, right? But maybe I can say like name, nope. How to create a list. Let's say with values Elixir. And again, like, I mean, this is kind of my learning process. Like, I don't mind exploring. Yeah, I don't know how else to say that, but yeah, so maps are going to be kind of like hashes, keyword lists and maps, basic types, understanding lists. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, so that's still not getting anything super valuable with this. So I'll probably give up pretty soon on the trying to create, Okay, working with lists, length, great. There's the module. That's the map function, which is useful. All right, so I don't see any kind of like literal constructor that can take an argument to give me a list that automatically has like 9 blank spaces, right? Like in Ruby, which by the way, at this moment in my life, I miss dearly. I'd be able to say that and get back an array with 9 spaces whose default value is an empty string. But unfortunately, we are not in Ruby land right now. So I will just hard code it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Awesome. So there is a board. And now I guess my idea here would be, let's put 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's put an X there. And if I say enum at, we need to know how to interpolate, because I need to inject that. I want this not to be a literal part of the string, which I'll explain in a second, right? But the idea was that if I say enum at board 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, right, I should see an X. But when I actually run this program right now, let's get out of here. If I type in exit, nope. Okay, so So I just hit Control C to send a break signal, interrupt signal, and then I hit abort. Let's now try to run this. Right, so that's what I meant by I need to interpolate, because clearly Elixir took this literally as a string, right? And now what I basically want to know is how do I interpolate in Elixir? And I'm just going to guess that it mirrors Ruby's syntax. That's Ruby's interpolation syntax. And given the fact that when I did that, my text editor highlighted that, I'm going to guess that was right. Hey, look at that. Cool. So the idea here is that as long as this board list is filled with data, I can start accurately printing out this board. Okay. So I have a board, and I'm able to read from it, which is great news. The things I'm concerned about right now, or things I'm thinking about, one, like this is obviously a local variable in there, and I know I'm going to need to pass this board around, and I'm a little concerned about where that gets defined. I also kind of want to play with something called arity, which is that, it'd be nice to have a version of display board that really is kind of agnostic of data, in the sense that, like, if I call tic-tac-toe display board and don't pass it any data, it's going to call this version of the function, right? And this is called Argumentarity, which I'm going to talk about right now. Let's build another display board. And this is where Ruby and Elixir really switch, right? Or in general, actually a lot of programming languages. I actually don't know any programming language that behaves the way Elixir does. I've never encountered something called Argumentarity. We have two functions called display board. The first definition of display, and normally in every other programming language I've ever used, only this version of display board would be supported, in that we basically overwrote the first version of the function by defining the second version. In Elixir, we have something called arity. And arity is a word that is super fancy that describes the amount of arguments that a function takes. So on line 9, I have defined a function called displayBoard0 because it takes 0 arguments, and its arity, the amount of arguments it takes, are actually used to define this function. And on line 18, I've defined a function called displayBoard that takes in an argument called board, and its arity is 1 because it takes one function. So on line 6, I'm going to be calling displayBoard with 0, which is going to basically be this like really naive one. And then just, to show you, if I do like puts, you called displayBoard1, right? And then if I call it again below, and let me just put a new line just to break it apart. All right, whatever, hopefully that works. And now over here, if I pass in board, and let's just paste in that enum interpolation I had right over there. Nope, not on that version of it. Okay. All right, and then in there. Okay, so here we have the displayBoard 0 arity, and here we have the displayBoard 1 arity. And I'm going to call the first version of displayBoard, then print a new line, and then I'm going to pass in this board argument into displayBoard with arity 1, and we should see the board again, and it should actually print out an X in the middle. Cool. So we learned a little bit about arity and functions there, which is nice. Okay, it's 4:47. Let's go a little further. So the real point of this method of this function is to basically print out the values in the board at every index. So I'm just going to do something like this, just get all of this kind of set up so that we have like kind of a stubbed out version display board using arity, and then a real version. This is totally unnecessary in the sense that, this version down here, given that I always have a board, is enough. But I really wanted to play with arity because I never did that before. And I'm actually going to get rid of this version of the function. It's not worth keeping. Because we'll always pass in a board even when the game is just started and there's nothing in it. So let's get rid of this guy. And then we'll always pass in the board, and the board is going to start as blank. So it'll print out an empty board, and that's pretty fun. Okay, cool. Let's get rid of this line of code. I did like, though, let's get an IO dot puts here. Let's get a new line there just to make some space so that looks nice. Cool. Okay. So that's pretty good in that I have this board. I'm passing it in. I know that if I put in like an O and an X in this list and I read out of it, that'll print out. Awesome. Okay, cool. So the next thing I want to do is figure out how to let someone make sort of a move. Like I want to be able to modify this board based on what the person types in. So the questions I need to answer now are, how do I gets from the command line? How do I convert the string into an integer to update that index in the board after subtracting 1? Right, so the idea here is what I'm thinking. I'd like the game to be like, put like, where would you like to go? 1 through 9. And then imagine if the person typed in 5. The next thing I'd want to see is a board, is basically a board with an X in the middle, like this board right there, right? So that's kind of my next goal in terms of programming. And this is really, by the way, like, at this level of how comfortable I am with this language, this is how explicit I want to be with myself, right? These are questions I want to answer. And this is kind of what I want to implement, right? And I'm just going to do it directly in this call function for now because it feels like the most direct place to put it. So I'll say like, but eventually I want to extract it into probably some sort of like move type function. But I don't want to start passing around data yet, so I'm just going to try this for now. So let's do io.puts, where would you like to go, 1 through 9. Okay, and now I need to know gets. I'm going to actually guess something. I'm just going to say input equals io.gets. No idea if that's going to work. And in fact, I have actually no idea how to confirm this because, like, I guess the only thing I guess I could do is I could echo it back, right, and say io puts input, right, saying that whatever I type in over here should get echoed back to me. What I really want to know at this point is like, what is the binding.pry of Elixir, right? Because I'd really like on line 24 to actually stop my program and be able to introspect on this variable, assuming any of this works, rather than just echo it back. So I have like some learning goals, which is nice, and let's give it a go. Hey, look at that. io.gets is undefined or private. Did I mean one of gets 1 or gets 2? I probably did. I'm just not sure which. So let's go to io.gets Elixir and see what the hell that thing is. Okay. I'm also going to do input master. What is this? Cool. It's simple enough to use that. io.gets. Ooh, interesting. Ooh, okay. So this is nice. Again, just opening up a bunch of articles. And let's see what is going on here. Okay, I/O, input output, beautiful. Gets a number of bytes. I definitely don't want a number of bytes. Receives a line from the I/O device. Standard input. That's interesting. Interesting. To display what is your name as a prompt and await user input, type in io.gets. Awesome. That's beautiful. It's exactly what I was looking for. right? I actually don't need this line of code. The gets function basically takes in the prompt that you want to display. So let's try that and see what happens. Hey, look at that. And there it is. It echoed it back to me, right? So now I have this inside of input is the value 5 that I typed in because of line 25. And that's a nice little test I just did, which is I took in input from the command line and I just echoed it back. So for instance, if I typed in hello world, it'll echo it back. And that's how I know that I've correctly, I'm going to say the word assigned a variable. However, I know all you Elixir fanatics, it's not technically assignment. It's some sort of like a quality comparison thing, right? Where I'm saying like, was I able to assign a value to make this word equal the other word or something? I don't know. Okay, so that's good. We got that, and now I'm just going to do the other thing I wanted to know, which is binding.pry for Elixir. What? How do I jump into interpretation mode? Pry while testing, debugging Phoenix with iex.pry. Okay, great. So. Oh, look at all this. This is great. Debugging. We are getting good. Okay, so let's see what is going on. Pry while testing. Debugging Phoenix with iex.pry. We are learning so much. Okay, so it seems like I need to say something like require IEX, which is basically interactive Elixir. And although it isn't a traditional debugger, since you can't step, add breakpoints, so forth, it's a good tool for non-production debugging. It runs in the caller process, blocking the call. That's fine. You can finish the process by calling respawn, which starts a new EX shell. If you need breakpoint feature, we can use debugger module. It ships with Erlang. Let's make a change in our thing, blah, blah, blah. I don't see any debuggers or breakpoints in there, which is interesting. Oh, okay, I see. Okay, so this is more of like a breakpoint debugger, which is going to have lots to do with like memory stuff. I think I think that this iex.pry is kind of going to be enough for me, but let's just go a little bit more. Okay, that's interesting. Let's just go one more article. All right, this one is annoying me because it's also about Phoenix, so let's just skip it. Just one more. All right, there we go. Require REX. So that's good. So now what I want to basically do in here, there's my require IEX, and I guess require is similar to like I'm just loading a module. It's interesting I don't have to make that into a string. I guess if it finds the module, it loads it, which is interesting. And then let's replace this, instead of io.puts, let's do iex.pry and see if we end up in an interactive console where I should be able to type in the word input. Interesting. So cannot pry. It says, is an IEX shell running? So I'm a little confused. So it looks like I need to suddenly run the program using IEX as opposed to mix, which is not fun for me. Only because I don't know, it just doesn't feel, just not like super into it. This is interesting. This is like a different interpolation thing. Oh, there we go. He's saying that. All right, whatevs. Yeah, I mean, I'm mostly just exploring at this point. I definitely want to kind of get back to focusing to figuring out how to get to binding. But, you know, until then, interesting. Elixir dose, data conversions. Oh, that's interesting. Binary to integer. We're going to need that in a little bit. Okay, this is definitely an interesting blog post that's going to be useful for sure. I'm still would really love to understand the difference between IEX and mix and why I can't use that. This is a little scary. Okay. I don't know. I'm just going to try IEX.s and then give me my file name of that and see what happens. Okay. So that's still not running it. Oh, okay. So instead of running it with Elixir, which is how I was running my program before, and basically it wasn't able to open up that process, I guess because there wasn't an IEX shell running. I guess what this command does is similar to Elixir, but it actually starts up an interpretive shell that I can pry into. Well, actually, I don't know that because the error only happened on the next line. So, oh, interesting, great, allow. Yes, I do want to go into that process. Okay, so I should now be at line 27 in this code, which means I should have access to that variable of input, and awesome, great. Okay, so I now know how to pry into a running Elixir program, which basically means I need to run my program in development while I'm building it not with the Elixir interpreter, but with the interactive Elixir and just send it the script I want to run, and that allows me to pry into it, which is nice. Cool. Great. All right, so it is 5, and that was a pretty good hour. So we're going to take a break, and I'm just going to go for like a quick 5-minute walk, have some more Red Bull, and we will get started with the next step, which is, we're basically at this point, right? How do I convert it to an integer and then use that to update the board, and we'll go from there. So what I'm going to do right now is, let's get out of here. Oops, and abort. Okay, cool. So I'm going to actually push this stuff up because why not? And we'll go from there. Okay, I will be back in a minute. Is there a way for me to shut off the video stream for a second? I don't know, it feels scary. Since I got the streaming thing working, I don't want to play with it. So you're just going to be looking at a blank wall for 5 minutes. I'll be back. Okay, I'm back. That was a little longer than 5 minutes, but you know, we had a whatever. Okay, so we have our pry, we have this. Now basically I want to convert their input and subtract 1. And we saw, I want to stop opening that program. We saw like binary to something in one of these like articles we were reading before. I think it was in this one, right? So it was binary to integer. Cool. Let's play with this real quick in IEX. And let's just say binary to integer 5. And that doesn't work. Great. That's very upsetting. Do I not need that? Okay. So we're now basically, That's interesting, because according to this article, that should have just worked. So I guess what I want to Google now is how to convert a string to an integer elixir. Okay, integer.parse 1. Let's try that. Integer.parse 1. So I get back a tuple. Curious. Yeah, that's a pretty cool function. So integer.parse is giving me back a tuple where the first element in the tuple, and I don't remember how to get the first element. It was like elem, right? So if I say like elem, this is crappy, right? So I pass that in and then say 0. I'm going to get back, I should get back 1, right? But that's a really crappy line of code. There's got to be an easier way to do that, right? Which is here what I've basically done is integer.parse 1 curious is going to return to me this tuple. And then if I use the elem function and pass in the index I want, I know the integer that I parse is always going to be the first element in that tuple. I get back the actual integer. But that's kind of a little annoying. So I'm just going to keep on reading and see if there's a better way of doing it. So string to integer seems pretty good. Let's try that. What if I say string to integer 1? Right, so that's better, right? Because I don't have to do that weird, getting the element out there. And I don't really care. We'll see. Hold on a second. Interesting. So if they type in something that can't be converted to an integer, this is interesting too, right? This is pattern matching, which is very interesting. Okay. So I like string to integer, and I'm just going to assume, right, the problem with this is that it's not very defensive in the sense that if they type in something like a word, right, that can't easily be converted, let's see how sensitive it is, right? See, it's pretty sensitive, that string to integer, right? And I'm still curious as to why I can't say binary to integer. Right, and if I say Erlang, binary to integer, what do I get there? We're just exploring. All right, so that's interesting, right? So same argument error there. So my issue with this is that I'm trusting that they actually type in, right? And the issue is like, if I say input equals io.gets type something, right? And now I type something like hello, and I press enter, right? See, there's a new line character because that enter, right? So now if I pass like string.toInteger and I pass in input, I'm going to get an error because of that the new line. Like even if input was equal to basically 1/n, which is the new line character, right? That still isn't good enough, and there'll always be a new line. So I need to learn how to either strip that, right, which is good. I can also just use this integer parse and like use that pattern match, which I sort of, that's what I'm leaning to right now. But I also like, I don't know, like how the hell does this, because in this blog post you say io.gets enter your age, right? So like where's their guessing game, right? So okay, so this is a bunch of testing, which is interesting, and I really want to get into that, but not right now. This is pretty interesting too. So I'm guessing that this is basically an old sort of version of Elixir where you didn't have to like explicitly use the Erlang atom to call binary to integer. So this is exactly the problem I'm dealing with over here, whether if I use string.toInteger. Okay, this is what I was looking for. Convert user input. We take in a string input, and this is interesting. Let's talk about what is going on here. I'm going to copy this code. I'm going to modify it a little bit, right? So let's do, let's build a new function. So we get string input, but basically this is going on. It's sort of like chaining in Ruby, which is that I'm sending string input as the argument to string.strip, which I am then sending to binary to integer. But I want to use string.toInteger here, right? So it's kind of equivalent. This line of code is equivalent to doing the following, which I guess is like not Elixir-esque, right? This is what you would do in I believe, Ruby, right? Which is you would first strip the string and then take that return value and use it as the argument sent here, right? But Elixir kind of takes it a little more linearly, right? Because when I read line 33, I actually start at this concept and then go to the outer one. But Elixir is like, you know, here's this input, send it to that, send this input as the argument to string.strip, send the return value of that to string.integer. Which, you know, at first when I was reading that programming Elixir book, thinking in terms of line 31 is very foreign to me. Like, I'm pretty used to thinking in terms of this nesting, but now that I see it, this does make sense to me. Okay, so now we have this nice new function called convert user input. And in theory, I could actually do this, right? Which is to say that I'm taking the return value of this and piping it into convert user input as the argument, which means input should already be converted. And this is going to be called, yeah, let's just see that. I don't know. Let's try it. Let's get out of here. We still have that ex.pry, so that's pretty good. And now if I type in 6, I want to allow it. And now if I type in the word input, I should have the integer 6. Whee! Cool. That was pretty fun piping. So let's go over that again. I am taking the return value of io.gets, and I'm sending it to convert user input automatically. Let's do it further, right? Because I actually, at this point, I never really care what they typed in. I only care about its index value. So I'm going to actually build another method called convert input to index, right? And what that's going to do is def convert input to index takes in a string. No, it's an integer input. Integer input, and and what I basically want to do is, like, I don't know, return integer input -1. So now, you know, at this point, what I'm hoping is that, ooh, I have no idea what this is. What? There's a whole bunch of stuff. And now input should be equal to 5. Beautiful. Aborts. Let me just make sure I don't have any running Elixir processes. I don't. Okay. So one, I got this one thing about like something being deprecated. String strip 1 is deprecated. Use strings trim. I don't know if I want to believe that right now or even deal with that. Okay, so at this point I have the index that they want to go into, right, by this crazy line. And I think I can do this, which would actually be like really pretty, right, in terms of like what it's doing. It's taking this, converting its user input, which is basically just like, you know, converting it to an integer, and then I'm converting the input to an index. And let's just make sure that this style of like those line breaks, which again I think looks kind of pretty, works. Okay, I'm going to change that to trim because I hate errors. And now if I type in index, awesome, so that works. Okay, so we want trim. And let's try it one more time. So I type in 5, and I should get back 4. Beautiful. Okay, so at this point, I now know that the index is correct. And this is a pretty cool procedure. This is kind of like get a user move, right? Which I actually kind of like. Yeah, let's do that. Let's just wrap this in its own function called ask for move, right? And that's what asking for a move means. Cool. And now over here, what I basically want to do is update the board with an X at that point and then print it out again. So now what we need to figure out is how do we update a list at an index, right? So how to update a value of a list by index in Elixir. Well, this isn't fun. Right, because this is a little worrisome. So, I mean, one thing I know about an Elixir is that you don't have, you can't really modify data once you've created it. That's sort of like the idea of like a functional programming language, which is, in theory, I'm creating a new board, which I'm okay with, but I don't know, I just need to figure out like what I'm looking for. insert at list index value. It returns us with the value inserted at the specified index. Note that index is capped at the list length. Negative index is offset. Okay, I'm going to use that, insert at. And that looks like it's on list. So if I say that board now equals list.insert at, and I pass in the list, which is the original board, and the index, which is index, and the value, let's just assume it's x. I don't know what turn it is yet. Okay, interesting. So that should update. So this is going to return to me a new copy of the board with an x value inserted at this index. And I hope this reassignment thing works. I don't see why it wouldn't. And then if I display board, we should now be able to, actually see what move got made, right? Which would kind of be the end of this little sprint that we just did. Okay. I want to go in position 9. Hey, look at that. It worked. I don't know why I ended up in an interactive Elixir over there. Okay. Oh, because I typed in IEX. Okay, I get it. So that when you type in IEX, you end up in an Elixir thing, right? If I run it via Elixir, now it'll just run the whole program and it'll exit, right? So let's go in the middle. Beautiful. Cool. So now we can make a move, which is great. Okay. Okay. So this really represents making a move. I don't know if I want to extract it, right? So let's think. All right, so what do I want to happen next? So here are just things I'm thinking, right? One, right? We have no validation. How do we validate that the move is legal? Okay, so I mean these are kind of two really related questions, I guess, which is like we need some conditional logic in this, right? Which is to say that before I do line 25, I need to make sure that it's a valid move, right? Okay. So let's do something like this. Let's say if valid move, I hope I can name functions with a question mark like I can in Ruby. If valid move for this board at index, then I want to do that. Else, I'm going to say io.puts, that's not valid. Okay, I'm hoping that this is just the Elixir like if else kind of end, it's just like Ruby. And I need to build this function called valid move that takes in two methods. And by the way, like in the back of my mind right now, I'm like really thinking in terms of like pattern matching, because like I know that's what Elixir would want, but I'm not cool enough to do that. So I'm just going to kind of do what I would normally do, which is instead of trying to build this function with some sort of pattern match built into it, I'm just going to build a statement, like an if statement. I'm going to say something like, if enum, right, do we have a list at? Right, we don't have that. So I'm going to say enum at, right, if enum at for board index, ooh, and now I need to know how do I do comparison. Right, so let me see, if I go into IEX, what if I say x equals x, what's that? True. What if I say x equals blank string? False. Perfect. So I can just use that comparison and say if the value of the board at this index is equal to an empty string, then I know it's valid. Well, I guess I can really just leave it just like that, right? That takes care of like valid move in the sense that as long as I type in an integer, that works. Okay, so let's try that out. What I'm going to do is, in my board, I'm going to start out with an x in that position, and then I'm going to try to move in there and see what happens. Oh, okay, cool. Syntax error. Don't panic. Let's see. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Where is it? So I'm at, maybe it's like, maybe I need to do there. Otherwise I'm going to have to look at some syntax stuff. Oh, I got lucky there. Cool. Okay. Variable ask for move does not exist and is being expanded to ask for move. Please use parentheses to remove the ambiguity to change the variable name. So that's line 24, which is that it wants me to explicitly make it a function to remove ambiguity. Board is unsafe as it has been set inside one of case, condition, if, and, oh, please explicitly return the value, for example. Ah, I see. What it basically wants is to say something like that. I have no idea why, but that's what it wants. Okay. Again, I have no idea why. That's really scary to me because can't board then equal the return value of that's not valid? Which feels very wrong. Oh man, my brain is starting to hurt. Okay, where would I like to go? 1. And it says that's not valid, which is good news. So that worked. This is now should have no warnings, right? But see there, that's really interesting because this is exactly what I was worried about, which is that what happens here is that because board can now equal this thing. Oh, I see why. What Elixir is scared about, I think, is that if I say in here, right, what it doesn't understand is that I've already kind of like, because I'm a Rubyist and I'm, like, I'm 100% certain that board is a real variable because of line 7, but because I'm reassigning it over here, it says that there might not be a variable when I call it over there. And here's where like pattern matching really should be coming into play. But my brain is hurting a little bit, and I don't want to do that. So I think yeah, I guess I have to deal with this. Okay, because I want to try to be Elixir-esque. So let's see what's going on here, right? Which is that when display board gets called, I don't know if I want to deal with that actually, right? Because the truth is that this isn't exactly what I want to happen. I want it to really kind of loop, until this is valid, until you get a valid move. It should keep on asking you that, right? So I need to learn about looping in a second, I think. Okay, let's do that, right? What I basically want to say is that it should be constantly saying ask for move until you get a valid move, right? Okay. Okay. Let's just, I'm going to see if there's an until loop. I can use a while loop. Uh-oh. Okay. So I don't mind using a while loop, but I also liked this thing. Ooh, iterating in Elixir. Okay. Loop, while, break, construct in Elixir. Let's just open up all these guys and see what's what. Okay, so it's, I see, okay. Okay, I get it. I just need to focus. because what it basically wants me to do is kind of encapsulate this in a function and then recall the function if it doesn't exist, which is the right way to do it. Okay, so let me just copy this idea, and this is where my brain starts exploding for a second, right? This is the idea I need to implement, right? And this is really true because, okay, I got this. No, I don't, but I will get it. Okay, so first, all of this represents a move, and basically, what I want to say is that it's sort of, shit, okay, I got this. Let me just grab this code for a second, and I think I can build this. Okay, so first, let's just name this function based on their pattern. This is going to be called the move function. And it represents a person doing a move in tic-tac-toe. And what we say is index is equal to ask for move. And then what I want to basically say is case, okay, this is going to work, maybe. Case, okay, valid move, right, it's this. Right, and if it's true, what I want to do is make the move, which would be something like, well, this is a little interesting because now we have to deal with the variable scope, right? Shit. Okay, this is what I want to do if it's true. And if it's false, what I want to do is just say move again, right? And we're definitely going to need a board in here. So let's get that going. The problem is that this is not, I have no idea how this is going to work. I'm also not sure exactly what the, that does either. Okay, but I get this. Let's just make sure that this works in the sense that now invalid moves should be fine. And I just don't know if I can say board equals move board, I guess is my question. Let me just get, okay, so we don't need this code anymore because we're re-implementing it using kind of this recursive idea. And let's just try to say move board and see what happens. I guess I want to say board equals move board. Okay, I have no idea. We're just going to play. I want to go in 1. I want to go in 1. Okay. So there's validation working, but there's the, ooh, holy cow, that worked. I guess what I was concerned about is that I guess you only get one return value for the recursion, which is the second the function actually aborts. Okay, so what's going on here is that when I say move board, I'm entering this recursive function that asks for input. If it's a valid move, this move method is going to return the return value of list.insert. If it's not, it's basically going to just go back into move, and eventually that function will return this, which is why it worked. That's pretty sick. All right, cool. So, yeah, I guess that worked for me, which is pretty awesome. Still not sure exactly what this syntax is, but I imagine it's kind of like the same as like, when in Ruby. Okay, I need to get rid of all these comments because they're starting to like make my code a little hard for me to read. Okay, we are making good progress here, I guess. I mean, we have like a somewhat like, that's great news, right? That I can do that and that and that, and then if I go 9, it actually puts it in there. That's great. Okay, cool. The only other problem though right now is if I type in gibberish, it'll break. Okay, so let's fix that gibberish problem. So that gibberish problem comes from when we say ask for move, when we're converting to user input, I wonder if in convert for user input, I can like do a similar kind of thing, which is kind of, I don't know, something like this. Okay. Well, the problem is that I got an error, so I need to rescue that, or I need to use a pattern match. Right, okay, let's think about it. So, okay, I want to deal with this. What I want to say what I'm thinking is, right, it's something like this, right, which is, I'm gonna decompose this passing so that I can kind of be a little more explicit about what I'm thinking, right? This is the raw input, right? And then this is the integer input, which is, I say, convert user input raw input, right? And then the actual index that I return is basically this, right? Okay. So yep, that's right. And then just because I should not have undone that, let me just go back a little bit. I want to keep my original version of the code, which had that nice piping thing going on. Okay, and then awesome. So this is my original version of ask for move, right? And it's going to basically be ask for move's job to make sure that whatever they typed in is actually sensical, right? Not that it's a valid move, but that it's a valid input, right? So that is a number between 1 and 9, not whether or not that number is already taken in the board. Okay, so what I want to say is basically something like the following. It's something like that, right? Which is to say that I want to figure out if I can do something like this, where that's good and this is rejected, right? Something like that I want to basically try to figure out if I can get a pattern on convert user input like that, I think. Okay, so that's one idea I have. I definitely want to start experimenting with pattern matching, so I'm into that. The other thing I could do is try some sort of like begin rescue pattern in Elixir and basically try to like rescue this argument error in convert user input. Okay, I want to go back to that blog post about the guessing game and see if they mention anything like this, right? Right, because So there's this kind of idea over here, but that's a little too advanced. Or I mean, it's not the right pattern. Let me see. I like vaguely remember seeing something like this. Right, so it's returning this tuple over there when random number equals, that's in the function definition. I don't like that. Okay, this is not helping me enough. Okay. All right, let's start closing some of these tabs while we deal with this. Ooh, here's a loop. All right, I'm definitely not using that code. Each beautiful, I miss Ruby so much right now. All right, I just like scrolling through code. I'm trying to get an idea, but I also just want to start closing these tabs because there's a ton of memory being used. Oh, Rubyists, I miss you. Okay, so let's close everything, and we're going to start some new Googling. I need to think about how to phrase my question. I guess what I really want to start thinking about is like, this is really about validating user input, right? So I guess what I kind of want to know is, can I do a pattern match when I define one of these functions? I don't know. And just like see if there's a number in it. Really no idea. And then I guess because that's really the question I'm trying to answer, right? All right, let's see what we get. Whoa. All right, this is interesting. And by the way, just so you all know, I hate regular expressions. I mean, I'm just not like great at them, and I have a feeling I'm gonna have to get very good at this stuff. Okay, that's too complex. What is pattern matching? Great, I get that. I get that. No. Okay, that's definitely interesting. This is a pretty cool. I get what that's saying. Right, but I need something better. I need the, because this is all close. The problem is that I'm really trying to figure out the kind of format of the string more specifically. That's interesting, but we'll figure it out in a second because determinative string is numeric. Cool. This looks like a Rosetta code, interesting website. The Elixir example. Okay. So what this is giving me is a recommendation for an isNumeric function within an RC, I guess, Rosetta code kind of thing, where I'm basically using the return value of float.parse, which takes me back to not using binary to integer, or like the pattern maybe had to come in earlier, right? Because it's really at this point that I really want to start the whole asking for user input again, right? When I say string.toInteger. What was, when I was playing with that, right? We said like, if I say string to integer, and I pass in 1, I get back 1. But if I pass in something that can't be converted, I get the error already. What was that function that I was using before? I was using, oh my god, integer.parse, right? Or something like that, right? Where I said integer.parse, and then I said 1, and that gave me back this guy, right? But now if I say like that, right? Oh my god, okay, interesting. So this might be, I can match based on the return value of this pattern, which is interesting. I'm going to keep on going, but I like this. I really would wish this article was just in pure Elixir and not Erlang, because I don't want to drop into Erlang. Okay. Okay. Let's do this. I'm going to change this to integer.parse. And now, I guess in theory, the return value of this method is either going to be something like that or that, right? So when I say convert user input, I'm either going to get back a tuple whose first thingamajig is the integer I want, or I'm going to get back an atom of error. Okay? Now, okay, so that takes me to here. And now when I say convert input to index, okay, I think I got this. Okay. Oh crap, this is so complicated. Right, so this is case when I do that. Oh man. When it matches, right, so it's like And what I want to basically say is, like, if it's like matches the following pattern, which is anything and anything. I'm just playing right now. I just need to see how this works. Puts pattern matched, right? And then if it matches error, then I want to say okay. I don't know. So the idea here, and again, I'm like not exactly sure how I'm going to integrate this in, but I think that this like underscore just means like any value, and I'm really not sure. I guess I want to try to figure out if I can create a test for this outside of the scope of here, right? So the only method I really need here is this guy, right? Convert, I wonder what happens there. Okay, right, that doesn't work. Okay, let's say a equals integer dot parse 1, right? So now a is that tuple, and if I say case a do, and I say here's my valid pattern, right? Is like something like that. Oh man, I don't know why my cursor jumps. I want to say like, I don't know, io.puts. And then if I say error io.puts, now I should see the word valid. Oh, that was pretty cool. Now let's, okay, so that's the right code. And now let's make a equal something not parsable, like that, right? And then let's just redo this case statement. And now we should see invalid. Beautiful. So logically that works. Great. So this is going to work. Okay, and now the thing is that if it matches this pattern, what I really want to do in integer input over here, I want to take the first value, and that's what I want to return, right? And I can't remember how to get the first value, but it's like elem 0, right? From a tuple, it was like elem for, oh shit. Because it's like I need this, right? Right, like how do I kind of like hold that result somewhere, right? Because I wasn't using this value the last time. I don't want to recall this function. That makes no sense to me, right? I mean, I can, right? Like I can say, like, okay, give me back that tuple and give me, you know, but like that's not what I want to do. Although that should work in theory, and that the return value for this entire case statement should now be this guy. Otherwise, if it's an error, what I really want to do is just start is, I don't know, like start ask for move again. Right? Let's just try that. Okay. And then, I don't know, this is like a dangling return value for some stupid reason. Now let's keep that out of here. Okay, so then we get integer input. Right, and then the last, right, this is what I want to return is convert input to index for integer input. Right, okay. In theory, this should work. I mean, it's ugly, and I'm not happy, but it's nothing new. Okay, so that's the simple validation, and that's a valid move. So we haven't broken anything, which is always good news. And now what we need to do is type in gibberish. Whoa! It works, see? Except for one thing. I typed in 7 and I ended up going into spot 4. So that's messed up. No idea why. That's very interesting. I just want to see if that happens again. So we're only gonna mess up once, and then I want to go in spot 9. Okay, so something is wrong. Don't panic. We don't know what yet. But that's good news. In theory, the validation worked, right? It did call ask for move again. Okay, let's read a little bit more. Okay. Okay, I know what I need to do. The pattern I actually want to match is that this is my value, and this should be an empty string if what they typed in was, or actually this I don't care about, right? And now what I care about over here is just like, I don't know, I want to say like value, right? Because I'm casting the return value of this, if it matches this pattern, which is, can it assign the first element of the tuple to the value variable and then ignore the rest, then I get value, right? Otherwise, ask for move. Okay, so first of all, that takes out the recall of that method, which I like. And let's see if that works. Okay, so a valid move should go 5. That worked. Beautiful. So this worked perfectly in that with the pattern match of case, I'm casting the return value of convert user input into a tuple like that, ignoring whatever is in there, which is basically an empty string, and making the first thing an argument called value, which ends up being integer value, which then gets converted. Now the question is, on error, why does, when I get something right, it go into one less of a spot? E. Okay, so debug, because it should have gone in here, right? So at some points, and interestingly enough, does how many times I do this affect the thing, or is it always one off? No. This is really interesting, right? Because how many times it enters this routine seems to affect how off that thing is by the value, right? Which is that I entered that validation routine 1, 2, 3, 4 times. I typed in 9 and I ended up in spot 5, which is 9 minus 4. So something weird is going on. Do you see it? Right? For instance, to prove it to you, I'm going to enter the validation routine twice. Once, twice, and now I'm going to type in 7, and I bet you it moves into the middle, right? So for some reason, the amount of times that I do this seems to be affecting the, which is super weird. Why would that happen? Why would that happen, right? The second it goes into ask for move again, like everything should be cleared out, and then ultimately ask for move only gets to return one value, which should end up being this guy, right? It's almost like it ended up calling this 4 times. Okay, so this worked really well because that didn't happen with move, right? Like, when I called move again. Okay, let's see when we're calling. So we say index equals ask for move. Yeah. Okay, first let's do something like this. I guess the first thing I want to do is do I just want to print out that and then see if that works. So now if I type in 6, it should go in spot number 4, right, which is the problem. Why? Why is it doing that? So what I'm going to do is something a little weird. What I want to do is move this back. I don't know why I think this is going to work, but I kind of want to go back to this format as opposed to assigning all these variables, right? And say like, basically take this block and like put it there. Wait. Let's just not cut code. Let's copy code, right? I'm going to take this block. Okay, so this is my original kind of nice way of doing it with the pipes and the arrows and stuff. Okay, so here this comes instead, right? And I want to take the return value for this and then pipe it, I guess, into convert that. Yeah, whatevs. And I'm going to get rid of this, and I'm going to get rid of this. And I think these are actually equivalent, like all of these were the same thing. But for some reason, I feel like this is going to allow me to not care about how many times that pattern match happens. Maybe, nope. Oh, wait. No, I didn't like that. All right. Why is it taking away 1? And where? Okay, what I want to say, let's just do something else. I don't know, return value equals, okay? And I want to put an eix.pry right over there, and let's see what happens now. I basically want to like try to introspect or something while it's running. Okay, let's see what happens. So if I type in gibberish, right, so I shouldn't have entered pry, which makes sense, and I type in gibberish again, right, and now I type in something valid, and I type in 8, and now I'm over here, right, and what I want to know about is basically what values do I have, right, so what is integer input equal to right now? Oh, I want to allow it, yes, sorry. Integer input is, okay, so somehow integer input got equal to 7. Which it should not have been equal to 7. It should have been. convert user input. All that does is convert it. Oh my God. I think I figured it out. Which is, this isn't actually the return value I want over here. It's this, right? That's it. And then I can actually just get rid of this assignments. That's it. Because I see. Okay. I'm going to explain it. Let me just make sure it works. So there's 2, 3, and now 9, and there. Okay, perfect. Okay. So here's what was going on. Let me just get this code copied, and then let me just go back to what I had before, and I'll explain why it was breaking. Basically, the way recursion works is it was calling ask for move like 3 times, and every time it called ask for move, it was still waiting to do this line of code. Something like that, basically. But by moving the code into this, which is what I just had and just deleted by accident, right? Basically now, I'm actually only ever calling convert input to index once when it's correctly. Otherwise, ask for move is the end of the recursive function, right? So that works really well. And now I just want to make it like super pretty, hopefully, if I can. Does this work? Can I say like, and then, you know, like that? Is that a thing? And get rid of most of my variable names? Nope. I cannot. Why can't I pass the input of this, the output of that, into this guy, right? Because I really wanted to, like, you know, I mean, but now I'm not passing it. Let me see, I don't know. Let's just play. I don't mind declaring that one variable up there, you know, but I do kind of, I would like to, yeah, I mean, I can do it like this, I guess, right? That's like the more like Ruby-esque, I guess, way to do it, right? And then 6, and it went to 6, beautiful. And let's just do a valid move, 4, and it went to 4, beautiful. Awesome. Okay. So I'm okay with that. I mean, you know, I can just assign the variable the way I did up here. And given that that's a pretty long like piece of code, I'm just going to do it like that. Okay. Cool. Oh, I know how I could get it into the other format. I basically need to wrap all of this into some sort of something. So that the line of code that I want it to read it's that, really. And then this becomes it's that. Now, that's like a lot of logic for a case statement. I'm not super happy about it, but that theory, that should work. Yep. Cool. Right, so I'm piping the return value from here into convert user input. Convert user input is taking in that string. It's using all of that piping to basically make that return value as part of the case statement, and then it's doing the recursion and things like that, which is all set. That works. I'm okay with that. Yeah, I mean, if I built like another function, like I could basically, the truth is, the way this is converting a user input, right? This method is now misnamed, right? So let's just go one step at a time. I want to say this, and that is this logic, right? And then what I want to rename, so then this is really convert, right? This is case, that's right. Right. And then this really becomes, it's not handle user input, it's really like, this is the function I want to rename. Right, it's these two. So what's a good name for that, right? So this is ask for a move. We ask for, process move. Perfect. Process move sounds a little weird actually, because we have this move method, and it's basically process input. It's process move input. I like that. I guess, I don't know. I mean, really, all I think right now is I miss Ruby. 7. Beautiful. Okay, cool. That was a nice little sprint. We validated the moves. We learned a little more about recursion and pattern matching. We debugged a bunch. We built some more functions. It's 6:15. Let's take another break. Okay, I will push up this code that is functional, and we'll go start again in like 6:25 or 6:20. All right. Okay, I will be back in like 5 or 6 minutes. Cool. Is that a joke? Is that a recursive joke? All right, everyone. We have a special guest. This is Steven. He works with us at Flatiron School and is awesome. And he's our resident Elixir expert. And since we have a pretty good working version right now, I thought it'd be fun to have him kind of look at it and tell us all the ways in which I suck at Elixir. So here's the game as it is right now. Here's some, you enter gibberish.
Bad input right there.
Right, and then you type in 9, and it puts an X in there.
Pretty nice.
Right, so that works. Here is how I'm doing it. Right, so this is my main file, and I'm saying tic-tac-toe.call, which is then running a call routine, printing out some stuff. I make a board. There's an X there to begin with. I call display board. And then I reassign board's value to be equal to whatever move board is. Right, move board says index equals ask for move. And here's the first recursive validation, where I really wish we had like a while or until. Right, so I'm taking the output of the gets and I'm moving it to process move input. And then process move input. This is where I was a little not sure if this is like Elixir-esque. Right. So basically, when I call convert user input, integer.parse is either going to give me a tuple where the first element is going to be the integer value it was able to extract, and the second is going to be whatever string was left, or it's going to give me an error atom. Right? If I get an error atom, then I tell them to enter something valid, and then just restart the ask for move process again. Right? In this pattern match, I cast the first value, if it's valid, as a variable called value, which I then say pass to convert input to index, which basically subtracts 1 from it, which becomes the return value of this method, right, of process move input, which then becomes the return value for ask a move, which then becomes the value of index. Is that kosher?
Yeah, it's good. Some stuff you can use, so like here, there's an opportunity to use some pipes.
Right.
So usually if you find yourself like passing a value into something and then using that return value again as an argument for the next thing, this can be really, really nicely as like board, and pipe then, into move. Right,
and then pipe, what I really want, it's basically this is what you're saying, right? Right, but this is, anyway, this is going to have to be wrapped in some sort of like turn loop anyway, where it switches the character and stuff, so I'm not ready to do that yet. It's still easier for me to think in terms of like declaring variables, as opposed to piping.
Right.
So like, in the beginning, at one point, when I was building this, one of these functions, when I was building one of them, I had them like, as each individual variables, and then like once I got it working, I then tried converting it into the piping.
Right.
The variables feel slower to me and like easier to introspect on.
Yeah, one really cool trick that I use a lot is so say you want to do say you move to this way of doing it. So like let's say we do forward move.
1 second. Oh, I see.
Display board. So like you might want to like look at what board looks like between move and display board, and a variable gives you exactly that, right? What you can do is this trick. You can say io.inspect. And all I'll do is print it out and then return it back.
Can I put an iex.pry there too, if I wanted?
You would have to do it in a weird way.
Okay.
If you have to do that, I would say like do a variable and just like do an iex.pry.
Okay. Right, and basically on line 13, what you're saying is that take this variable and send it to move.
Exactly.
Okay.
Right. So you're kind of like starting the pipeline.
Right, that's really weird. Right, that's super like foreign to me, the idea of just like starting with a variable value that you're then piping,
right,
as opposed to sending it in explicitly in the argument.
Because what you're really doing is like the idea is that you're passing it from one function to the next, and then it's transforming it every single time. that takes a little bit to kind of get your head around, but I think it's a really powerful concept because it's just like taking a value, changing it a little bit, maybe looping for a little bit until it's ready to be changed and continuing on down that path. You asked specifically about this thing here, the process move input. This is fine. This is actually a really good pattern, just kind of like identifying that I think of it as like shapes. The shapes are different from integer parse. Mm-hmm. So either the value, tuple or tuple, and then or error. Like this is a really good use case of this. And this is actually really idiomatic. Just like using a case and then keying off of one or the other, and then recursing into the asking if you have to go back.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Can you build the turn stuff? All right. Awesome. Thank you, Stephen.
Yeah.
Have a good night.
It's fun.
All right. Going back to headphones. That was Stephen. He's awesome. He was actually one of my first students 6 years ago when I started teaching Ruby. And unfortunately now he's a way better programmer than me. I mean, fortunately for me in Flatiron School, he's a way better programmer for me, but unfortunately for my ego because he's been programming for 6.5 years and I've been programming for 20 years and he's just way better at it than I am. Okay, so we're doing good. Apparently I'm idiomatic in Elixir, which is nice. All right, so let's talk about what's wrong with our game right now and figure out the next thing we want to do. So the problem here, oh crap, this is going to be so annoying. Okay, I guess we have two options. One, the game shouldn't end there in that we could just start a game loop and saying that you keep on asking for moves and keep on putting in X's, or we can start dealing with switching the character. Okay. Let's stretch for a second. Let's figure out what we want to do. Okay, I think it's better to start switching characters, right? Because we already have one turn that occurred and that we started the board off with that X. So let's see if we can get this to dynamically be an O or an X, and that'll be fun. And then we'll figure out some sort of game loop where it'll continue in some manner. Whew, sleepy. You ever wonder why thinking is hard? I'm physically exhausted right now because I've been thinking so much, but that makes no sense because it's not like I've been running or anything. But your brain seems to using your brain seems to be almost as exhausting, if not more exhausting, than using your body, even though it's not actually a muscle. But that's a tangent. Okay. So what I want to know is basically right here. It should not be an X. We need to determine the value to put in there. Okay. So I mean, if it was Ruby, what I would do is something like I want to again. Oh man. It's basically whose turn it is. It's character token or something like that. Let me see what I named it in Ruby. Did I close that other window? Please no. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, let me just look at what I named that function in Ruby. Oh, how I miss you. Oh, look at all this. This is so easy for me to understand. Current player. Perfect. Okay, that makes sense. So if I was in Ruby, what I would do is something like this, is current player board, where I'm basically using the return value for here as the third argument for this list insert. And actually, I like that. Eventually I'm going to figure out how to pipe that into that as the third argument. But for now, let's just implement it, because we're going to have to do some sort of counting, which is going to be fun. Current player board. Okay, and do. Okay, so basically the way that the board works is we need to count how many, let's say, spaces or X or O's there are, and if even X, odd O, something like that, right? We just say that if there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, so it's 9 minus the amount of spaces, would tell me how many turns have been played, right? And that's where I really need is a turn count type method, right? So let's just start there, right? Because I'm going to need like def turn counts, and that's also going to be based on the board, right? And what I'm saying is in here, in this function, I need to return the amount of, okay, so this is going to be in the enum module. Let's just go enum elixir and see if there is, like, Ruby has these great like enumerable methods like count and stuff, and I'm just praying that Elixir does too. Okay. No. Oh, wait. Okay. This is perfect. This is exactly what I'm looking for. Okay. So this will give me my turn count. So the enum I'm counting is board. And then what I want to know is how many of them are equal to X or O. Right. Okay, I got this. I don't know. I'm just going to say X equals O. Let's make this token. Or token equals O. Okay. So what I want to figure out how to do is use this turn count function kind of like if I was in Ruby, I would open up IRB and I would like read this file and instantiate an instance of this and do it like that. For now though, I'm actually going to just go into here for a second and just do like ex.pry so that I can just kind of use it. Right, yes, okay. And now I can say, I'm inside here, so if I say, so right now board is equal to that guy, and if I say turn count board, oh, beautiful, is undefined or privates. Oh, my guess is that it did not read the whole thing. I don't know, turn count, let's see, board. Oh, look at that. That's pretty sweet. And now if let's just put 2 in there, and I should get back a 2, right? Awesome. Okay, so our turn count method works, which is great news. Cool. So now what I want in here is take board, and this is what Stephen was saying out before, pipe it into turn count, and then what I want to know is the return value of this entire thing, even or odd. Right, so how to check if an integer is even or odd elixir. So we have this is odd, right? And so I can say like, and integer is odd. So if it's odd, then it's going to be O's turn. Okay, so now I want to know what is the ternary operator in Elixir. Ternary operator Elixir. You know, all these blog posts that are basically converting Ruby to Elixir are making me like so jealous. All right. Okay, so that's the example. And now what I basically want to do I don't know. I mean, if it's odd, then it's O, else it's X. Is that right? I guess we'll know in a second. Oh man. Okay, so there's some sort of ambiguous thing in that giant pipe. Let's see. All right. Parentheses are required when piping into a function call. I think the issue is about this if statement over here. Which is, I'm trying to take this value and pipe it into integer is odd, right? So maybe it's actually this, right? It's integer is odd, and then I'm piping that into if. So that gives me a value. How do I send it to there, though? Well, I guess I could say that, right? I see. Okay, let's explain that. What I'm saying is that the variable n will equal the result of these pipes, and then I will use that in an if statement, which is to say then, if I want to remove the variable declaration, sweet, something like that. Oh, God, okay, I'm starting to like programming again. So tic-tac-toe dot current player for the board. Ooh, interesting. All right. Oh my God. One more time. Current player. Um, okay, I just have to require integer. I don't quite understand when I have to require a module because, like, didn't I use integer down here before with parse and I didn't need that? So, like, you know, why there and why not in the other place? But you know what? Let's just move on. And then I guess I want to remove this pry and just see now, does it actually give me an O move for the first move? O would like to go in 2. Amazing. Whew, we are doing good. Okay, so now if I replace this with our starting, all right, so first move is 1. Beautiful. Okay. The next thing I want to do is now we got to get some sort of game loop going, which is definitely going to be like recursive again, which already makes my brain hurt. What do I want to do? I mean, one, I want to put like line breaks because like I hate when this input kind of travels over itself. I'm going to go to the display board method and just put a line break after it for now. Let's just io.puts a new line after every time I display a board. Okay. I just want to see how this looks now. Okay. I'm actually going to put a line break every time I display a board on the top and on the bottom, something like that. I don't know. Okay, let's see where we're at now in terms of just how the spacing looks. No, leave me alone. That break process is super slow. I want to go in 2. Okay, that works for me. Okay, whatever, there's too many line breaks, but I just can't deal with it right now. Okay, so now I need to start looping. I don't want to deal with like winning or losing yet. I basically want to be doing moves until the game is over. Okay, I got this. Totally got it. Okay, this is the compilation. So it's basically case we're going to wrap this and call it turn. Okay, so that's a turn, and now I can do what also Steven suggested, which is just you know, this cool stuff. Oh, that is pretty hot. Okay, I'll give you that. Damn. And now all I need to do is build an over method function. And the game is over. This is really similar. I mean, for now, I'm basically going to say full. Oh, wait, we like it like this. Is the board full, right? It's going to get more complicated than that, but for now, let's just do it like that. And then I can use that same thing I did before for turn count. Actually, I want to say like all, right? It's that enum all method. Okay, I got this. it's all, yeah, that feels right. If I go into EIX, I can try this out really easily. And I can say enum, not really easily because this stuff is very hard for me to type out. So I'm just going to say XO. Okay, given that, that ends up being true. Okay, so there's a question mark. Cool, so that is full. And that is not full. Beautiful, so that does work. Right, so that was a nice little isolated example of my full method. Cool. And then that's it. That should. So the idea here, it's going to keep on calling turn board until over returns true. So right now we should have a fully working game. That didn't work. All right, let's put an EIX.pry in here. So it's checking if the game is over. And board, and if I say board full, that should give me false. Ooh. That's interesting because in my mind I'm in that scope, right? So, but it wants me to do it like this for some stupid reason. Great. If I continue, okay, so continue, and let's type in 3. And now what does board look like? Okay, so I don't quite understand how EIX works because, like, it seems as though board only got called once, and I can't really figure out why. So I want to go in 4. Why am I in EIX right now? 4, 5. All right. So okay, I'm missing the recursion. Okay, I get it. I get it. I get why it's not looping. Because this isn't a while. Okay, just wait. Because this only checks it once. There's some other loop construct I'm missing here, but again, it's recursion that I'm looking for. All right, let's just try. Okay, I think I got this. Is it like play? Okay, let's try board, play. And then in the play method, it's right. Okay. So def play takes in my board. And then we do this case statement, and the recursion is not calling turn again, but rather calling play again. No, that can't be it, because something needs to call turn. Okay, it's turn. It's board to turn to play. That's it. Okay. It's not board to turn to play. Because turn is returning display board, which is why I got the OK, because that was a return value from there. Where is this recursion? I have this. So I call play. It starts, play should be starting the turn loop, the game loop. It checks to see if the game is over. Since it's not, it's going to take the board and send it to turn. Maybe it's not that I want to pipe this to play. It's like then I just want to say play, right? I don't know. Does that work? I'm just going to make up some syntax. Nope. What about, does this work? So board goes to turn, and then board goes to play. Okay. That's super fun. It's not quite right. Oh man. Let's think about this. So clearly the board is kind of getting reset every time. What about, I mean, these are equivalent, right? This is not, that doesn't change any like logic in that, right? Right, so still same. Okay, so, okay. Oh, fuck. I mean, I could change the return value of display board to just always be board, right? Like, nope. Maybe turn needs to be board. It's this. The problem is like that I'm used to being able to modify an array in place, and it seems like I'm creating too many copies of it here. So I got to think about where the copy is being created and where it's not being passed correctly. Okay. All right. So, all right. Okay. This is, where the hell is the move method? Okay, so here's where I should be. So move. Okay. Take the board and pass it to play. So I guess one thing I'm curious of, will it reinstantiate it now? Like if I start, oh man, this is, okay, so now if I say 1, interesting. And I should still have that error, right? Because, right, okay. Okay, so let's say this, right? I just want to see. So move returns to me the new board, right? Which then gets passed to display board, which prints it out. And then we're back up here, and that's the okay problem. Yeah, why didn't this work? This should work, right? If display board returns board, whoa. Okay, that's super weird because we all saw that was not happening before, okay? And I don't remember, I mean, I'm pretty sure I had the exact same logic. Board turn to play. Because, yeah, all right, well, we're playing a full game. Ooh, that jumped it. Why? I mean, like, I just don't understand the programmers that claim that, like, maintaining this kind of state is, like, and by the way, it should be over right now. All right, so we need to again, this is where I was like trying to talk to Stephen about like, all right, let's just say this, right? Okay. I want to make some single variables. Okay, so a lot. Okay, I guess what I want to see here is, and again, I can't figure out how to get this to actually allow me to like, oh, I know what I'll do. So right now, board is empty. And now if I exit, and I say continue, I don't know where I am, right? Like normally when you exit one pry, you can kind of continue debugging, but it's like a next, nah. All right, so what I want to do is I'm just going to do ie.inspect. So let's say board, let's pipe that into there. And now, I did mean inspects. Ooh. Okay, debugging, great. Excuse me. I am just not looking for ix.pry right now. I definitely also only care about debugging Elixir, not Phoenix. I really wonder what the -s means. Nope. io.inspect, that's what I was looking for. Fuck me. Alright, let's see what happens now. Alright, I want to go in 1, and I want to go in 2, and 3, and 4, and 5, and 6. Oh. That's why over is not working. You guys see it? The array is getting larger. It should not be getting larger, it should be staying the same. So my issue is basically, ooh, how many bugs could that be related to? Like a bazillion? The issue is definitely going to be in how I am doing my list insert at, which is I am not trying to make it bigger. I'm trying to replace a value. So replace a value in a list elixir. I mean, it's going to be in the list module. It's got to be like. Replace at. Oh, man. Okay. Okay, that's good. So that's replace at. Now I'm still not 100% certain why the difference between, like, if I say board, pipe that to move, pipe that to display board, and display board is returning the board, which has been modified, because there it is. Why is that a different thing? Apparently it's not. Okay. All right. That's pretty good. Where did I put that io.inspect thing? I want to get rid of it. There it is. Okay. So now all we need to do is figure out if someone has won and abort the game, right? Okay. We're going to do this. We're going to be able to build all of tic-tac-toe. We're going to finish it because all I need basically now is I have a full. I just need a one method. Okay. 7:09. I'm going to take like a 5-minute break. I'll be back at 7:15 and we will finish this. We just basically need to kind of modify over to accept an idea of one and then hopefully be able to tell you who won. But I'm not promising anything. All right, be back in a minute. Okay. All right. I know exactly how to build the one function, which is full is actually the last check I want, right? What I want to say, it's basically this, right? It's if over returns an x, or what I want to really say is if it returns anything besides false, that value. Okay, so let's try this. Hold on. Let's put this one first. And then let's say winner I want to say if winner is X or O. Right, well, let's try this actually. Because if it's literally true, then I want to say puts like cat's game. Right? And then I want to say if it's any other value, then I want to say basically, ooh, this is going to be nice. Something like that, right? Say now io.puts winner has 1, right? Okay, so if over returns false, then keep on playing. If it returns true, then it's a cat's game. If it returns winner, then say whoever's won, right? So this over right now is saying pass board to full, but first pass it to 1, and then pass that return value to full. So 1 needs to return either the board or whoever has won. Oh shit. Right, because okay. Are there constants in Elixir? All right, let's just say I actually don't need it anywhere else besides 1 right now, so I'm going to say winning combinations equals an array within an array of 0, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Nope. You know what? Let me just grab these for my Ruby implementation. Cool. Those are my winning combos. Okay. Man, I am tired. Okay. So those are my winning combos, right? And now this is going to be difficult because what I need to do is basically loop, but I know that's not really a thing, and say for each, it's any, right? So it's enum any, and I think I had the enum docs up. All right, so let's get to any. Um, my issue with this implementation of any is I'm not going to know who's won. Right? Because it's not telling me. Ruby will return to the element which made that true, I believe. Let me just see if that's true. Right? How did I implement it in Ruby? Maybe I use detect instead. Is that right? I know any. Yes, it's not. I need the equivalent of detects. Right. Right. Okay. So what is the equivalent of detects? Elixir array detects. Should we find? Okay. I can use find. Okay, so let's try this. What we want is, okay. Now, one issue is I need to put this on more than one line of code. Okay, let's just call it like that. Okay. So it's going to be or the board. Okay, so that's going to return nil. All right, let's just start this. Okay. Okay, so if this token is equal to that token, and that token is equal to this token, then someone has won. Okay. I mean, I want to refactor this because I know it's not like Elixir-ish, but I just can't think right now. So if one combo exists, then all I really care about is the token in there, right? Which is to say that what I want to return is just the enum at the board for the one combo. Let's just use 0, the first one in there. Right, else return the board. Okay. That makes sense to me. Let's see if it makes sense to Elixir. This needs a do. Okay. Well, the good news is the cat's game thing worked. Now, what I really want to inspect, though, let me see if I can make it. Okay, so there's X, there's O, there's X, there's O, and now X goes in 7 and wins the game. So that should have returned this guy, right? Okay, so what you need to figure out is why that didn't return. So what do I want to inspect? Because one's returning the board, right? Which makes sense, right? Right. Okay. Okay. I got this. So the issue is that okay, let me see this. I just want to see. Because that should, I just want to make sure that the logic of the any is working. Would you say that if someone is 1, let's just print that out really quick. So 1, 2, 4, 3, and now X goes in 7, and that should have been, okay, cool. So 1, this isn't working. Because this would have triggered if that was true. Okay, I see why. Okay, don't panic. I'm not looking at the right thing. It is, oh my god. So this would return to me 0, which is that guy. And now what I want to know is, it's the, oh man, I'm going to have to refactor this, but it's the enum at the board at that value. and then it's enum at the board at that value. And then it's, oh man, Steven will help me refactor this, but I am definitely running out of gas. Okay, so that's actually right. So now we should be triggering that statement. Okay, so let's win again. Whew, okay, that sucks. Oh, as long as they're not an empty string. Shit. Oh my god. As long as they're not an empty string. How did I deal with that in Ruby? Okay. And not all right, so basically skip it if the first thing is an empty space, and then do all the other ones. Perfect. Whew. Okay. Perfect. That's what I wanted. So, that's right. In that, now 1 returned x, right? So, what I basically want to say right, I'm not piping this over there. It's board to 1 or board to full. Well, let me just, I just don't get the value in writing it like that. Like, why wouldn't you just write it like this? Like, right, because it's not passing that. All right, let's see if that works. One second, sorry. Okay. This doesn't need to return the board. Oh, man. I did it. That's awesome. Somewhat awesome. So that's X winning. Now let's make O win. 1, 2, 3, 5. You can go in 4. And then O is going to go in 8. And O1. Beautiful. And now let's get a cats game. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It is x's turn. X goes in 8. O goes in 9. X goes in 7. Okay, X is 1. How do I make a cat's game? I don't know, it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. X is 1. 2, 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9. It's another trap. Man, I can't even lose a tic-tac-toe right now. 8, 6, 9, 7. X should go in 4. O should go in 1. X should go in 3. O should go in 5. And X should go in 2. And there's my cat's game. All right. So that's it. That works. That's tic-tac-toe. An elixir. So let's just take out this variable, and what I could say is basically you could just return that value. No, because I do need to know who won. So if this is true, then I want to do this. Otherwise, I don't care. All right, I'll leave it at that for now. I'm just beat. Okay, well, I guess that's it for today. I mean, we got, like, really, this entire thing done. My brain definitely hurts. I hate this passing of arguments, but I'll get used to it. Not quite sure about this stabby anonymous function syntax, but I'll figure that out also. But yeah, I don't know. I hope that was useful watching me learn. Lots of weird stuff, but pretty happy with the code. And I mean, there's definitely some piping that I need to do over here to make this stuff cleaner, but I just really can't think at this point. So I guess that's it for this Friday night. Next week, we're going to refactor this a little bit. I'm definitely going to think about, like, kind of having like some sort of struct or something, maintain this board and the current player possibly, because I'm passing it around a ton and I hate that. But I can't even think right now, so like I'm just beat. Normally at the end of like a learning session, I'd kind of want to write down, I guess I can try, like where I want to leave off, which is, I guess, my next week are like refactoring the CLI TTT to not have to pass around board constantly of the player, potentially, and one player versus computer. But yeah, and then we'll get into this thing. And obviously, I'm sure there's like way more in the language that we haven't even covered. But that was a pretty good like little session. I mean, we got a lot done. I'd want to write tests also potentially. That'd be fun. Use mix, better structure, more elixir-like. Right, and then I'm also thinking, like, I didn't use like tuples or any kind of like object or hash type thing, and I'd like to use that a little bit. But I don't know, I'm going to send this code around to some friends and get some input, what they think of it. But yeah, I mean, given knowing a programming language and having like a debugging and learning process, that wasn't that bad. And then also, I want to know when ex.pry is in a loop or a recursion, how to continue and not abort. Because that was really annoying, not being able to do that. So I guess that's kind of session number 2, is like a little refactoring, but I think we might even get into Phoenix. It'd be nice to also, because this doesn't feel like a 4-hour session. That's like 2 or 3 hours. So it'd be like, you know, to get exposure to Elixir in CLI before. And maybe we'll do some sort of scrape-based thing. Okay. But yeah, my brain is just totally fried right now. So that is the end of this Friday night. I guess if you're still watching, congrats, you made it. So did I. And that's it. Have a great night, everyone. Oh, I'm going to push this up. Cool. I guess that's it. Good night, everyone.